Live from the Green Room Studios, from the spacious property of Bates Nursery and Garden Center, 3810 Whites Creek Pike, it's the At Home Show with Josh Cary and David Bates.
Hey, good morning, everyone. And as you may be realizing right about now, Josh Cary is not here. Present and unaccounted for.
Who's going to settle down the audience?
Josh is away on a family wedding, as I understand it. But do not dismay. We are very fortunate to have the great services, the keen intellect, and the multitude of stories associated with the doctor himself, Alan Lincoln. Alan, good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, sir. Thank you for having me on the show today.
Well, we're just glad to have you here. We're also glad to have all of you out there in our viewing audience. And we want to go around the studio here quickly and say good morning to Caroline and to Austin. Good morning, guys. And there we go. We're going to keep hitting camera buttons till we get the right one. Hey, good to see you guys today. We'll be entertaining questions throughout the program, and we're going to have input from everyone, including Tyler. Good morning, Tyler.
Good morning.
Glad to see you here today, and we'll do what we usually do and proceed with the weather. And oh boy, was it yesterday wonderful!
Oh wow.
Supposedly yesterday was the 8th of April. It felt more like the 8th of February.
Sure did.
It was a blustery, overcast, and all around uncomfortable day. And today is going to be a little better. It's still going to be on the chilly side, but the clouds will be diminishing, and a high of 59 degrees today. So it's going to be a little better. We're still going to have some winds to deal with. So this is kind of windbreaker weather. It might, if you can get out of the wind and be in the sun, it won't be too bad. But I would suggest a windbreaker today, and going to be partly cloudy conditions. 35 for the overnight low. Now at this point, they're not showing any frost watch or warning. However, and if cloud cover hangs in there, there won't be any. However, there's no guarantee for that. So we have as many things as we have with new growth and tender. We have to be on the ready. And I was here this morning at 3:30. So, and tomorrow will be a repeat performance of that. You guys got to make sure it's all going according to plan, but we'll get back to the forecast and the oh woe is me part of that later. Sunday, tremendous improvement, 77 degrees, partly cloudy. That is more like spring. You can just tell by this little curve right here how much higher the peak is up there. So that's a good sign. That means temperatures are warming up. Monday, 67 and 63 for the low. Scattered thunderstorms. Looks like that runs over into Tuesday as well, and perhaps even into Wednesday morning. April showers, you know what I'm talking about. On Thursday, looks like we're going to have sunny conditions as it currently appears. And per usual, every weekend, it looks like we got a cool down coming for next weekend. Fortunately, at this point, we're only showing highs in the upper 30s or maybe 40 degrees. So I will say that we're not out of the woods yet on frost and freezes. Just stay tuned. Currently, it's 42 degrees here in the Music City, live from the Green Room at Bates Nursery. So here we are, everybody. It's looks like a lot better day weather-wise than yesterday. So that makes it, for those of us, and we know who we are, we have to be out there in the elements. It's a lot easier to deal with things when you don't feel like you're having to dress for winter in the springtime.
The sun shining helps tremendously.
It does. It helps me to have a more positive attitude. And I don't want to. It's not good when the guy drifts off into negativity. So I try to avoid that as much as I possibly can.
Yep. It can spread like wildfire.
And we invite your questions also, and those can come through our variety of social medias, mainly through the Bates Nursery and the At Home Show pages, Bates Nursery Instagram, the At Home Show Instagram, and our Bates Nursery Facebook. Josh isn't here, so unless somebody's got time to monitor that, Tyler.
That'll be me.
Okay, Tyler's got the At Home Show Facebook. So if you've got questions, this is the time to put those in. I'm sure, as usual, we have a number in the queue. Maybe there's some left over from last week we didn't even get to. So, Caroline, take it away and see where we begin.
All right. We've got a boxwood question to start the day. My boxwoods are sparse at the bottom. How can I encourage them to fill in?
Well, first of all, you go out there and you speak really nice to them, right?
Yes.
Austin, you want to say, hey, you're not looking bad. You're just a little tired. I think what they're probably seeing is what happens to a lot of broadleaf plants when they start leafing out is that unneeded foliage that is on the interior and at the bottom of the plant tends to shed off because it doesn't get much light as that new growth begins to emerge. What do you think, guys?
Yeah, I think so. I wonder, though, too, boxwood's not really known for losing leaves down below all that much.
No.
They typically stay leafed all the way to the ground. I wonder if you don't have boxwood at all and you actually have compacta holly, which is a very common confusion. Yeah, they look very, very similar, but Japanese compacta holly tends to lose its lower leaves down below, whereas boxwood doesn't. It's going to be a little tricky. If it is boxwood, it's going to be fairly tricky to get them back leafing from the bottom. They want to leaf from the tops rather than the bottom, so that's kind of a tricky question. What do you think, Doc?
Well, I mean, it could possibly be that. It could possibly be some injury that may have happened to the plant earlier, someone with a rogue weed eater, something like that, animal damage of some kind. Mm-hmm. Also, boxwoods have a tendency to be thick and heavy on the top, and when they get that way, they get thin down inside and all that. And the technique that we try to explain to people is plucking the boxwood to let the light penetrate into the plant. Mm-hmm. So if it is boxwood, that would probably be something that you would maybe need to do. But I think you're right in the sense that it possibly could just be holly, which is a whole different animal. And, like you said, Austin, that sounds like that's what it might be.
Yeah.
Well, you don't want to I'm just curious, Doc, if you're plucking your boxwood, do they cackle?
Sometimes. It depends on how sharp your pruners are.
Now, the other thing that, and it doesn't sound like that this is the case with this question, another nemesis that's part of life going forward is boxwood blight, and that boxwood decline. And I have one in my house that's in a remote location. It's not near any others, and I've got to find the right conditions to be able to get that thing extracted and deal with that dying and decaying material because I don't want to spread it to my other good boxwoods, and they're all more than 30 feet away from it. So there's a really good chance I can get this one out and not spread it to the others. But I got to be really careful about that. So I'm looking forward to getting that plant out so I can quit looking at it. It almost certainly has boxwood blight. It's got a lot of really not just bad-looking foliage down low, but throughout the entire plant. And it is pushing out new growth, but it doesn't look good. So if you're seeing that generally overall, that's a whole nother issue. And I'll just talk quickly about, you really need to have like a large, like a commercial size trash can, and go ahead and put 2 trash bag liners in it, because the way we are instructed to deal with boxwood clippings when you know it's an affected plant is to clip those off with your pruners and put them and double bag them. So if you'll take a large trash can and go ahead and put one bag in there and then put another bag inside of that, you've already got it double bagged when you start to close it up. Prune those off and put them all in there. If it takes multiple bags, it just does. But what you really want to make sure that you do is, if you have a shop vac, try to get a day when it's not windy and it's not wet. That way you have a chance to clean up as much of that foliage that has dropped down as possible to keep that from spreading, and then get it all out of there. And it needs to go to a landfill. It doesn't need to, or it needs to be burned. Mm-hmm. You cannot put it in a compost heap. Do not do that. So just be mindful of really want that to go away completely and not come in contact with other desirable things that you could possibly spread that contagion to. And the most important thing of all is whatever you've used to trim it with or to prune it back with, or if you have boxwood shears, you can easily transmit that from one plant to the next. So I'm going to have to very carefully take alcohol and clean my pruners and my loppers and my shears afterwards to make sure that nothing on that plant gets transmitted to another.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And then sometimes, y'all, if it is looking really bad, you don't like it, the lower leaves are getting worse, sometimes it's easier to just start over. That happens with a lot of different crops. I know we want to try to save all of our plants all the time, but sometimes you just got to take your losses, and just dig it up and maybe buy a new boxwood. We've got plenty of them.
Now, if you've got boxwood blight, that's not a solution because you cannot ever replant in that spot again with boxwood blight. You got to go with something else completely. Fortunately, only boxwood seem to be affected by boxwood blight, hence the name. Mm-hmm. But you cannot go with any other cultivar or species of boxwood. They are all susceptible to it, although some decidedly less than others. So you need to pick something else to go in the spot, as will I, and try again. So, but if it's just other things that are where it's just not looking good and you want to start over again, then certainly it's no problem. Just dig it out and replant. It's easy a lot of times if you. I've got a fig tree in between two large boxwoods at another spot in my yard that I've got to side prune the fig because it's overgrowing into my boxwoods, and I love all of them. But the fig has an advantage in that it grows a whole lot faster, and so I've got to keep it side pruned, let it go up, and keep it out of the growth habit of the boxwoods because they don't recover all that quickly. You don't really want to let anything get over onto them that would cause them to defoliate and deform them.
We've got a lot of activity on both Facebook pages of Bates and At Home Show.
All right,
Renee. Renee Bates has commented, we have a boxwood near the street that was losing foliage low on the plant. The problem was P-mail?
Yeah. Well, correct? I think what she's talking about.
Every neighborhood dog. Oh, every neighborhood dog stopped there to leave a message. I P-mail.
P-mail, yeah.
I put a small garden fence around it and trimmed it up to allow more light to get to it. We hope it will relief.
Yeah, this is a different boxwood than what I was referring to, but that one definitely, it's and everyone who has dogs are very good about making sure their dog gets to stop in. Yeah. But she did get a fence up around it, and so they have to aim at distance now if they're going to leave a P-mail on
long distance P-mail.
Yeah.
Yep. We do have another question here coming from Melinda on the Bates Facebook page. Pruning questions. My Ebbing silverberry have grown multiple 5-foot sprouts on each bush. How much should I cut back?
Yeah, those Eleagnus are really aggressive growers. So talk about it, Austin.
All right, Eleagnus. Good. Dr. Lincoln knows all about Eleagnus. It's been around a long time, has it not?
He actually has a book entitled "All About Eleagnus." Yeah. And
like I told you, I've never seen a dead one. Once they get established, there will be that.
I've only seen them die when we've had extreme cold weather. There's been a couple of years where we had more than 5 degrees below zero that they have gotten killed out when there's no snow cover. But beyond that, they're growing machines. And
so when it comes to pruning them, don't think too much, to be honest with you. You can take, on an established Eleagnus, you could almost cut almost all of it off, and it doesn't matter. It's coming right back. You're just going to make it mad, as Dr. Lincoln would say.
Yeah.
So if it's getting wild on you, you need to get it. It's about to start leafing out if it hasn't already. So you need to go ahead and get your trimming done now. And like I said, take it in half, take it a third.
Take it 3/4.
Take it 3. It does not matter. Just cut them. They're going to come right back.
It doesn't matter if you cut it to where there's no foliage on it at all.
To the dirt.
Yes, it will still come back out.
And if you do it wrong, you'll get a chance to cut them again in about 2 months.
Yeah. But if you're looking for a plant that you have a huge yard and you're looking for something that will create a very wide mounding effect for a screen. It creates they tangle in together. The leaf the leaves grow off backwards, so the branches naturally hook into each other. They're almost impenetrable.
Yeah.
Once they grow together, so
it is
that aspect.
Yeah, it's the fastest growing, cheapest shrub you can buy for a screening effect if you want. So you plant them 10 feet apart, they're going to get 10 feet tall, 10 feet wide in every direction, and even bigger with age. So yeah,
in October they are the most fragrant.
Yes.
It's actually, to me, it's the first time I ever smelled those, which was probably about 50 years ago. I was waiting on a lady here at the garden center, and I thought, my goodness, she has the loudest perfume I have ever. I really thought it was her. And then I realized, a few days later that everybody seemed to be smelling that way, and it was indeed the EVA because it was not her perfume, but it has the smell of kind of like a very, very cheap perfume. It's very strong. It's overbearing.
Yeah.
It matched the cheapness of the plant.
So anyway, just so you know.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Well, we have another question on the At Home Show Facebook page. I have 2 crepe myrtles in the front yard, so we're switching over to crepes now, that have this black mold-looking stuff all over the limbs. What is this, and how do I treat it? We saw it at the end of the season last year, and I tried to treat it with a spray insecticide. My goodness.
Yeah. Insecticide doesn't do much for fungal problems.
There you go.
No, it's going to be it's a sooty mold, and it's probably because of aphids. You probably had aphids on your plant and didn't notice it. Crepe myrtles are,
and maybe there are hackberry trees nearby, and one leads to the next. So
yeah. So with crepe myrtles, they're very vigorous growers. So you don't always catch aphid infestations, and if you do have them, they excrete honeydew is what you call it, and it's just kind of their leftover excrement. And what happens is fungi builds on that, and it turns your stems black. So the best thing to do right now while they're dormant is to go out there and try to get a really hard stream of water spray on them, and literally just rub it off with your hands and a hard stream of water. That's kind of your first method. So if you can get that done, clean them up, and then this season look for aphids up under the back sides of the leaves. That'll be greatly helpful. And like David said, if you do have hackberries, that's just unfortunate. You're going to see that kind of every year if you don't either remove the hackberries or really treat them deeply. So, but like I said, first method is to just go out there and physically remove the black off with water in your hands.
Yep, that'll do it. Mr. Lincoln, you're being awful quiet over there. We want your input.
Well, I was just going to say, and I've never tried this, but I talked to a gentleman here at the nursery a year or two ago that said he had a power washer that he had down really low pressure, and he used it to wash off the crepe myrtle. And I would suspect you'd have to be very careful with that, but he said it did a fabulous job in washing it off.
What you want to use is, you get a variety of nozzles when you first buy a pressure washer, or when you rent one. What you want to do is carefully look, and the one that has just like the bullet hole point in it, take that one and throw it away. Don't ever, there's no use for that. For anything. All it'll do is damage. You could write your name in the sidewalk and it'll never come off. That kind of thing. But what you want to do is select the one that has the widest fan on it, so that it's spreading out that pressure over the widest V shape. And that way you can work from distance and gradually get just close enough to it to be able to take that off.
Keep it moving.
Right, and there's no reason why that wouldn't work extremely well, particularly if you do it right now, because crepe myrtles, apart from ones that have just come in from the extreme southeast, they're still completely dormant here. So you have a good chance you're not going to hurt any foliage or anything. You can get in there and get them very clean, and they should be in good shape for the season ahead.
Lovely.
Wonderful. Well, I mean, the questions keep coming over here. Mr. Bill Hayes, longtime follower of the At Home Show. I have 30 kohlrabi plants and 60 pepper plants. 60. Are they equally susceptible to frost tonight?
No. Kohlrabi are very cold season plants, and there's really no concern on those much at all. Peppers are not. They're very much warm season. So if you're not prepared to cover them, I'm not saying for certain that you'll need to, but if you're planting early like this, and this is early, by the way, just because we have them doesn't mean it's a good time to plant them outside. But what you need to be mindful of is what do you need to do to give them a bit of protection. One of the things for small pepper plants or small vegetable plants in general is if you have, keep about 20 or 30 little 1 gallon containers, these little plastic containers that the plants come out of. They could be larger, and invert those over the top. And then you can put a sheet over the top of that, and they don't get broken, and they're protected from the cold, and then they're really easy to get off early in the morning. So you might consider that there's something to be able to do to be able to protect your pepper plants. The kohlrabi has no issue on them at all. They're very tough, very resilient, and we've already passed our first failure test of the camera that Tyler and I talk about
every other week.
Yeah, it's an every other week camera problem we have with this additional camera. So is there anything you want to add to that, Austin?
I would say if you have your peppers planted right now, certainly cover them tonight. I'm sure they're small. They haven't grown very much yet, so they're going to be susceptible to tonight's cold weather. So yeah,
not just peppers, tomatoes, whatever warm season stuff.
Any warm season stuff.
Okay, now wait a minute. Before we go any further, Caroline has been much too quiet. We've got to bring you into the
I'm sorry, I've been out questioning you.
You
right
have
now.
been. I'm sitting over here thinking that,
Come
Tyler.
on.
We got live folks.
People
do.
are up this morning. They're watching.
They're fired up.
So, Cary, jump in there and give yourself a question.
Okay, let's find me one.
us all
Here
one.
we go. Any plant suggestions for a screened-in, mostly shaded porch? So what I would suggest as far as houseplants go, or tropicals, if you're looking for something like that, we have a lot of ferns in. As you can see on David's side of the studio this morning, we've got some Bostons in front, Kimberly Queens in the back. Kimberly Queens can take a little bit more sun, and then we also have at the nursery some very large, very luxurious macho ferns and asparagus ferns. Yes, so we see David's hand just showing off those Kimberly Queen ferns right there. So that would be a great option if you want something, that's just going to fluff up your porch and then die off in the winter. You could also go with Sansevieria or Dracaena. If you want more of a houseplant, you're going to have to take that in the winter, in the fall when it starts to get a little bit cold outside. Those can tolerate lower light. They're not going to thrive, not going to grow super quickly, but they should be fine. You could also go with some kind of, yew or something if you want something year-round that's going to stay green. I have that on my porch. I leave them out all year, and I really never water them. They get no light, and they do great. So...
Well, see, that's good information.
Yeah,
and now
I got a question.
Now you know why you're here. You're here to help out. And
I'm here to help.
Hey, wait. Well, why don't we talk about what's right? What about a little bit of this?
Oh yeah, we can go on a plant tour. So
Well, I was just thinking for the shady front porch.
Oh, for the shady front porch, you could also go with some annuals. Yeah, so if you want some color, caladium, I love them. This is a great addition if you want to do a mixed planter. We picked these out yesterday.
that almost looks like a nephtitis. That particular
It
color.
does, yeah, you're right. It has that kind of look. Gosh, I love these so much. I have one hiding at the potting bench that I'm going to buy later today. So this would be a great option, low light.
Is that why it's hiding?
That's why it's hiding, yes, because I don't want anyone to get it before I can buy it. And we do have a lot of shade perennials, shady annuals that you could put in a mixed planter. I'm a big fan of heuchera, coral bell. I do those every fall and leave them on my front porch. Those don't get any direct sunlight. They do great, and they're actually really pushing right now. I'm about to put them in the ground and redo my mixed planters. So we have a lot of good shady items here
what I love?
at Bates Nursery.
I love the New Guinea impatiens with caladiums. New Guinea impatiens have like dark foliage with beautiful blooms on them. They live in the shade just fine. They pair with caladiums well. It's an excellent mixed container idea for a shady porch. So we've got it.
We do have it. We have it all here at Bates Nursery and Garden Center.
All right. And what else we also have, we'll take just a moment here. You see the backdrop behind Caroline and Austin. It's the same one we've got on the screen over on this end of the studio. We're talking about Earth Mix garden products. And if you want to have the absolute best success, and of course, it's not behind Alan and I here. It's on the other screen.
Yeah, I'm working on
it. You don't need to see me. We know. Anyway, Earth Mix garden products is... we believe it to be the very finest growing medium and amendments that are available in the market. 100% organic. We're actually in the process of getting the OMRI organic certification on the product line. So it takes quite a lot to get that done. There's a lot of criteria that must be met, but we've always taken the approach. It takes a lot of documentation, but what we have done in advance is that we've developed products that are going to give your plants the very best of everything they can use to be their most productive growing with a minimal amount of effort. And our studies have shown that you can reduce your loss by about 90% if you will use Earth Mix garden products. It's very common for people to have about a 3% loss on plants. Our studies here show that people who use Earth Mix can get that down to about 0.3%. So 99.7% of what you plant can be successful, statistically speaking. It might be 100% in your case, or it might be just 98. Anyway, you understand what I'm saying. You're giving your plants all the things they need without having to use chemical fertilizers or anything like that. And plants that have received a natural amount of really good organic nutrition are much more resistant to pests and diseases than other plants are. So you can reduce your use or eliminate altogether of chemical herbicides and pesticides. So if you want to do the very best, do what we say, and remember that success begins at the ground level. When you use Earth Mix garden products, you're going to want to find that. Go to earthmix.net. Click on the Find Earth Mix tab in the top right corner there, and there you'll see there's a map that appears, and then all the little pins that are all over Tennessee, Kentucky, even up into Ohio and Indiana, and the network is continually expanding. Make sure and support all these fine sellers of Earth Mix garden products. Again, success begins at the ground level when you use Earth Mix garden products, and we appreciate you giving us a moment to talk about that and to help you in your gardening endeavors. So there's that.
Perfect.
All right.
My supernatural that I laid in my raised bed has really been pushing those lettuces and cold crops that I have right now.
And Supernatural, by the way, for those of you who don't know, is a product name of our premium organic compost product, and
yes.
it's really great if perhaps you've used some other product, or maybe you've not used anything, but you're needing to enrich your soil to really get it fired back up again, ready for the season. That's a great selection for people who are going to, as you have done with it, supercharge your garden, get those plants ready to go.
Yes.
I love the Proganics Eye. Love it.
Mm-hmm. Well, she's
I'm an indoor
she's
kind of gal.
She is, and
It has many applications.
It does have
That's
many
true.
applications, and it enables you to be able to grow things. Not only the Proganics Eye, also as do all of it's true with all the Earth Mix products. There's no peat in any of them, so that's done by intent. Peat is not a renewable resource, and you can make a case that perhaps coconut coir is not 100% green, but there's a lot of it being made all the time, so it's readily available, and it does not create an attraction for fungus gnats. So it really, if those are an irritant to you, and I can't imagine if you've got them in your house that they're not, because they drive me crazy. You don't have to deal with those. Just use Proganics Eye and with coconut coir in it, and it'll do a great job for you.
I've never had a problem with fungus gnats since I switched over to Earth Mix Proganics Eye.
There you go.
All right. Are we ready for another question?
Fire away.
Here we go. This is a good one. I can't wait to hear the responses on this. Favorite evergreen trees that feel statement making? Ooh.
Oh.
Okay.
Has to be Southern Magnolia.
There's one.
There you go. That's a flowering evergreen. That's cool.
Yeah.
And what statement does that make, sir? A Southern Magnolia.
It states that you're going to have a nice green sweep or metal leaf rake of some kind to sweep up a lot of defoliated large leaves.
And once they're, people, I think a lot of times view those as being really slow growing. They're really not once they're established. They can get to be quite large. I've got a couple that are on the corner of our property in a bed that's next to a sidewalk, and we really have to prune those annually, cut several feet off of them to keep them back within the bounds of the yard, so that they don't, people don't get whacked in the head with them as they're walking on the sidewalk. So they very much are quite vigorous growers once they are established. So make sure you give them enough room.
Hey, I'm going to go to a different world in the conifers, and I'm going to say the cedars. So blue Atlas cedar or golden deodar cedar. Excellent statement maker. Those things are beautiful as they grow, and they're actually pretty quick to grow as well once they get established. Like Dr. Lincoln would probably tell you, not every one of those are going to take. So I feel like you've told me before, Doc, out of every 5 of those you've planted, at least 2 of them have died. That's a general. It's a good thing that I've noticed that myself. So they're kind of tricky to get going. I mean, once you plant them, they're either going to be quick to die or they're going to live and then they're going to grow quick. So, but a good statement for a conifer for to build around, in the bed.
Now, my suggestion would be, and it's for a number of reasons, is green giant arborvitae, and it's the plant that everyone should use instead of Leland cypress. Leland cypress has a number of known issues. It has this severe canker problem, and they are notoriously bad about dying while you're on vacation. They really don't like being neglected at all, ever, at any time in their life. They will give you grief. So green giant arborvitaes are much more forgiving. They're not since they are a conifer, all conifers can have some issues. Spider mites, bagworms are the 2 things that are primary culprits of all conifers. But if you spray Father's Day weekend, which is the time of year to remember to do that, pretty much you can deal with both of those pests. I always like to tell people, if you're going to plant like a screening effect, and green giants are great for that. They will get huge. You've got to have room for them to grow. They can get easily 15 to 20 feet across in time and 40 to 60 feet in height. So you've got to have room for those to grow. But no matter what you're planting, maybe you're planting something more like an emerald arborvitae that really only gets about 4 or 5 feet wide and maybe only 12 to 14 feet tall. Plant your screen and then plant 3 or 5 more somewhere else, because it is for the reason you just mentioned, Austin, is that invariably something happens somewhere down the line where maybe their spider mites have got in, or maybe one of them got dry, or maybe there's just something unforeseen that occurs. And if you have one that dies in the middle, you need to have something to be able to replace that back in with. And if you plant, a few extra ones somewhere else, you've got one to transplant from, because you're not going to be able to find one that matches likely.
Yeah.
You might be able to, but it's hard to do once they get well established and up to size.
That's kind of funny you say that, because I've got in my house, I got 16 Justin Brower's dwarf boxwoods in a line, all in a row, looking pretty good right now. But I've also got green velvets out behind them. But like you just said, I've got 2 extra Justin Brower's boxwoods in pots that have just been chilling, and 2 7-gallon green velvets, just in case something happens with one of those or 2 of those boxwoods, because you know how it is. Inevitably, one in the middle dies. It's not going to be the one at the end. It's the one in the middle or 2 in the middle. So I've got a couple extras.
It's the best insurance policy you can do. And what you could do, and here's another little twist on that, is you could actually take those if you rather than, because boxwoods are one thing to have in a container, but keeping a large conifer above ground and doing well in a container is more difficult because it's just really big. You could, and this is just for emergency purposes, you could put that container all in the ground. Now, that's going to make it a little more difficult to take care of because it's not going to get roots out. But because it doesn't get those roots out so much, if you have to dig it up, it's going to be a whole lot easier and a lot more forgiving. So that's kind of what I would call like a pro tip cheat code that you can use if you're really concerned about that. And it is one of those things that happens. There's rarely a time you see a hedge of any kind of a specimen conifer that there's not one that hasn't died, and it's 99% of the time it's in the middle. It's not on the end.
Always.
99.999. Maybe not always, but it's pretty much.
Uh-huh.
All right, so there we go. There's that.
Lovely. All right. There's one thing that I haven't heard this morning. It's what's in bloom.
Oh,
Austin.
what is in bloom?
What's in bloom? Things are blooming, y'all, around town. I was looking as I drove in this morning. So
It's a dog. Is this dogwood winter, by the way? This is dogwood.
I guess it is. The dogwoods are in pretty full bloom right now. Out where I'm at, it's a little chillier, so they're like 3/4 bloom. They're showing some white, but still a little bit creamy yellow. The dogwoods, the white dogwoods specifically, come out kind of creamy yellow, and then they change to that pure white. But if you're in the city, you're probably seeing a lot of pure white dogwoods blooming, and tonight we might get a frost, and that's what this refers to, is the dogwood winter or whatever. So whenever they're in full bloom, we get a frost, could potentially injure them. I don't think tonight's going to be that type of event, so we should be good with the dogwoods. Now, what's really showing off right now around town is the crab apples. My God, they are fully blooming. There's pink ones, there's white ones, there's dark-leaved ones. It doesn't matter. They are really lit up right now. So the prettiest flowering trees you're seeing right now are probably crabapple around town, and we've got a number of them here at the nursery that are just show-stopping. So if you need a crabapple, we've got plenty right now. Also, Yoshino cherry still in bloom, but on its way out. Hey Doc, me and you kind of talked a little bit this morning. Some of them never mind. We're not talking about Yoshino's. They're starting to leaf out and they're starting to lose their blooms, but we were talking this morning about forsythia. Now, forsythia, this is the 4th week in a row I've talked about forsythia being in bloom. I mean, it is really long bloomer. But me and Doc were talking this morning. Some of them still have flowers, but no leaves. And then some of them are fully cracking out leaves with some flowers still on them, but seem to be almost fully leafed. And we were kind of perplexed by that. I don't know. Why. What do you think?
I don't have any idea other than possibly the weather would be the only thing. I mean, it's been a great blooming season for forsythia because, usually I tell people, you get maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks out of them, whatever. But I mean,
it's been a solid month.
It's been a solid month.
And there are a lot more different cultivars of forsythia now than there were even 20 years ago. So there are differences between how long they stay in bloom, how large the flowers are, when the foliage comes out in relation to the flower. So there's a lot of other variables that enter into it when you have perhaps a dozen different forsythia cultivars. There may be way more than that, but those are the ones. The Linwood Gold is the one that's the most common of all the forsythia cultivars, but it's certainly not the only one.
And speaking of you two, y'all haven't even seen it, I bet, yet, but this week, variegated forsythia hit the lot. I have never.
What?
I don't know if y'all have seen it. I have never seen that. So it's literally green and white, like it's white foliage. Atop of some green that's mixed in. It's the first variegated forsythia I've ever seen. So
You got my attention.
I didn't know
Kinda
that.
different.
I just saw Tyler sit up straight when you said that. I mean, he literally go, oh my God.
yeah, it's certainly something. So other than that, let's finish up. We got redbuds in bloom. They're really pretty purple right now. A different one we don't think about too much is serviceberry. Serviceberry is blooming right now, especially here on the lot. We got some trees that are blooming. If you want a pretty flowering tree, but also a fruiting tree, if you can get to them before the birds do, it's a good little plant to grow. Adam Chapman, who is our general manager here, who's been here for 22 years now.
Yep.
He makes a fantastic serviceberry muffins every year.
They are incredible.
Incredible. So he loves his serviceberry.
It's just hard to ever get enough serviceberry to get enough of those.
I know.
Yeah.
I mean, and they taste very much like I describe the taste as kind of between a cranberry and a blueberry as far as the flavor profile. So they are delicious. And if you ever get to have one of Adam's serviceberry muffins, you will know you're somebody special because
That's right.
not everybody gets them.
That's right.
That's right.
And we all feel special.
Yeah.
All right, so finishing up some of the shrubs that are blooming, we got quince in full bloom right now. Pretty red, pretty orange bloomers. Also, creeping phlox is still going out there, which is the low ground cover phlox. And then what woke up this week in the woods is woodland phlox,
Yep.
which is a little blue blooming perennial that just kind of shows up in the woods every year, blooms in the shade just fine. But if you're seeing little blue purplish blooms off in the wood line, that's your woodland phlox. So that's what's in bloom this week.
Yeah, and again, the things that you mentioned, the creeping phlox and the quince are both benefiting from this really cool stretch we've had this spring. And Alan, you mentioned that with respect to the forsythia. That's certainly true with a whole lot of things. Even the cherries that have been in bloom for an unusually long period of time. Mine in my yard is nearly fully leafed out, and it still has a few blooms left on it, which is not typical.
If you've ever been down Riverside Drive in East Nashville,
I just drove through there this past
300
week.
cherry trees planted along Riverside, and they were beautiful.
Hey, speaking of that part of town, the Chestnut Group is doing of which my wife is a member of that wonderful group of plein air painters. And if you don't know what plein air painting is, it's really they go on location and they do landscapes and that kind of thing. Set up their easels, bring their paints, and start painting wherever they are. They're doing a benefit for trees, and that's going on at the Shelby Bottoms Nature Center today and tomorrow. I think I believe it's until 5 o'clock each day. So check that out. And if you don't, I'll be talking a little bit about my newsletter here in a minute. There's a link in there, and you can also go to the Bates Nursery website and find that link as well. But so great paintings. There are some incredible artists here in Middle Tennessee, and if nothing else, just to go to admire and be exposed to the level of talent that there is, it's truly amazing. So check that out. That's at the Shelby Bottoms Nature Center, and it's benefiting trees and trying to get people mindful and conscious about replanting trees. The numbers of trees in the landscape have been diminishing over the years. So it's a good idea to make sure if you're going to take one out, you ought to plant 2 or 3 back to compensate for that. So just be mindful of that if you had to remove a tree, because, hey, they're the best CO2 cleaners that we've got on the market, and they've been around for a pretty good while. Don't know if you noticed, but they're not some newfangled device. So
Yeah.
get you
right.
get you some more trees and clean the air up.
You know,
Trees
one
are
of the most
amazing.
enjoyable experiences for me was allowing a maple, naturally seeded maple, to just come up in my yard and establish itself and become part of the visual pastiche of my landscape.
Pastiche, that's an underutilized
Fancy.
word.
So is porticule.
Okay. Well,
Trying to keep up with you, David. That's all.
You had to fill in Josh's hole that he's left today.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
All right, we do have a lot more questions, so let's go ahead
Let's
and try
keep
to
going.
get to them. We have a question from our very own Berenice, who has worked at Bates Nursery for quite a while.
What up, B?
Yeah, hey girl, hey. Why would a dwarf mugo pine drop needles between the base and about 5 inches from the tips of every branch? Healthy and new growth otherwise. Huh.
That's what they do.
Oh, no.
Dwarf Migo pine does have a bad problem about shedding some interior needles, that's for sure, and some of those lower needles as well. I don't know if you're getting proper drainage. That's one of the biggest issues with all with conifers in general, but specifically pines and Mugo pines too. If it's not draining well and it's a heavy clay type of environment and it's kind of holding that water, kind of not getting oxygen to the roots, that's going to be an issue and where you're going to see some needle drop.
Yeah, excessive shade could be an issue.
That
also
could be another one, most
now,
definitely.
because it would sound reasonable to me that if it's getting enough sun to stimulate new growth, but it's not getting enough to retain those needles. If the needles are not contributing to photosynthesis, the plant says, "Oh, I don't need you. That's just more to support. I'm going to push it all towards new growth," and that may be also. It could be a combination of those two as well.
Yeah. And hey, bare knees, try something fun. If you see some, if the needles aren't growing back from the bottom, they're not going to. I'm going to go ahead and tell you, they grow from the new tips up top. So if you see that, what you can do is play with it and make it funky. So take off a lot of those lower needles, show some of those stems, and get some little funky looking pine going out there. Might look like a living bonsai. If you
maybe
will.
take a branch or two out and open it up a little bit.
Yeah, and just make it kind of cool. Play with it.
She won't do that, but
We've got a lot of activity over here on the Facebook page. Caroline, do you mind if I
take it away,
continue to
Tyler?
address some questions.
Let's do it.
All right. Sally's asking, my Royal Star Magnolia never bloomed this year and isn't looking good. Do they have a lifespan?
I wonder how old everything has a lifespan. Now I don't know how old it is or why it wouldn't bloom.
You need to take your thumbnail or a little pocket knife, scratch, starting from the tips of the branches, working your way down until you see green. It could be that it was on the cusp of getting ready to flower, and then we got hammered by a freeze, which is very likely. They are notoriously bad about not being able to handle cold weather. That would, if I had to put a singular guess out there, that would be mine.
And you should be seeing some leaves here. Honestly, they're leafing out, most of them. So
if you've got tip dieback, just when it starts leafing out, you'll know where that it's dead back to. Just prune all that other out, and it'll have another shot next year. But sometimes, and this year was one of those where a lot of them they got flowered out early. Per usual, they'll get hammered, and yours just might not have ever gotten opened enough to be able to detect that. So, all right. Fire away, Tyler.
Okay, we got another one here from Jules on the Bates Facebook page. Good morning, Jules. We have a privacy line of Murray cypress on the top ridge of a slope that have grown well except for one. It's still alive, but one large branch has lost all needles, of course. We haven't seen bagworms, and they get fertilized in season. Are Murray prone to any particular disease?
That canker.
Yep.
It sounds just like that canker.
Prune that limb out of there.
Yes, get it out.
Even if it looks bad, prune it out anyway, all the way back to the stem, to the main stem, hard as you can prune it. And then hopefully by doing that, you'll be able to get some other breaks and it will fill back in over time. But that's really the best thing to do.
And start planning on what you want to replace them with.
Well, there's that. And again,
the hard realism comes.
But that makes our point. If you have a screen, it never happens on the end. It always happens in the middle. So, all right, keep them firing, Tyler.
No, it's Caroline's turn now.
Oh,
Well, before we go on to more questions, I did send you some photos yesterday. Can we bring them up?
You did?
Yes, I airdropped them to you. But while you look
hold
at
on.
that,
Hey, before you do that, I'm gonna preempt the
Are those the
preemption.
containers?
they're the containers.
Let's talk for just a minute about why we're here. It's Bates Nursery and Garden Center. We all are here pretty regular, and if you've got questions about anything going on in your garden, that's all we do. We don't do plumbing on Tuesdays or electrical. We're horticulturalists, and we talk to people about plants. It doesn't matter what kind of plants. If you're talking about ornamental grasses or natives or fruiting plants or tropicals or perennials or annuals or garden plants or whatever you need for around your landscape, or Japanese maples or any other kind of shade or ornamental tree, good chance we have it at Bates Nursery and Garden Center. And our staff of experts, since this is all we do, we're pretty much up on it. Bring some pictures along with you. We'll do our best to try to help you figure out how to get the right plants in the right place the first time. That's the way we try to do it. And we're very fortunate that this is what I like to call our emerald anniversary, our 90th year. My grandmother indeed did start this business over on 26th and Charlotte back in 1932. So we've come a little way since then. We'd love for you to come see us. Bates Nursery and Garden Center, where we've been beautifying Nashville since 1932. So come see us, where we're proud sellers of Earth Mix garden products, and we're here to help you have success in gardening. That's the way we do it. Bates Nursery and Garden Center. We're conveniently located just a mile north of Briley Parkway. You can go to our website or go to Google. We're really easy to get to, so come see us. That's it.
Perfect.
That's enough out of me. Now go, Caroline.
So, Tyler, were you able to pull up the photos?
Yeah, just give me a second.
Okay.
It's,
Let's get one question in while we give Tyler a moment.
There we go.
Okay, let me swap over to you, Caroline.
All right, get to me. And there I am. Hi, everyone. I'm a pro at growing spindly clematis that doesn't bloom. What's the secret to success?
Oh no, is this Miriam?
It is Miriam. How did you know?
Oh,
I
damn.
saw. Oh, Miriam, I don't. That's a good question.
By the way, Miriam's going to be on our show here in a few weeks, talking about her neighborhood and about the big home and garden escapade that's going to be going on. It's going to be pretty spectacular. So, but
Cool.
that's all the tease I'm going to give about that. So talk to Miriam.
All right, Miriam. Spindly clematis. That's a tricky one. I don't know if is it deep heavy shade. That's one of the only things I can kind of think of. I mean, clematis is really a pretty easy plant for the most part, but I'm wondering if it's in just heavy shade.
Well, they like cool roots, but they like sunny tops.
Exactly. So
And that is not always an easy thing, an easy balance to find. She may have gotten in the spot where the roots are nice and cool, but there's just not enough sun.
yeah.
And they can grow quite vigorously and perhaps never produce very much flowers. So
And it's somewhat possible you've got a nutrient deficiency down below in the root zone. Maybe we can get you some phosphorus, a high middle number fertilizer, and maybe that'll promote some more blooms and some heavier roots. So we can go that route. But if it is in deep, like David said, deep heavy shade, that's probably the reason why it's not blooming.
it's all right. So
Okay,
All right.
well, I've got your thing queued up now, Caroline.
Nice.
all right, here we go.
Voila.
There it is. So we had one of our at-home show viewers sent us these photos. She took Austin's advice of planting tulip bulbs below her pansies, and she
Beautiful.
was so excited.
Look
It's
at that.
gorgeous, and we just wanted to show that off today.
Nice. Thanks for
Yeah.
watching that. And those are gorgeous.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So good idea, Austin.
Yeah.
Now-
We're gonna get some photos of his arrangement because it's popping off out there in the
Oh yeah, we've got
greenhouse.
that back in the greenhouse.
Yeah, it's starting to look good this week. It's been blooming for over a week now.
We'll do a follow up, but yeah, it's
All right.
And
good.
speaking of this week, it's somebody's birthday tomorrow.
Oh.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. Who is it?
Oh,
Austin.
Austin. All right.
April, baby. I was meant to be born in the spring. I love
You
it.
definitely were.
So I'm going to be at work tomorrow. So anyone that's watching wants to come out and buy me a plant or a tree, feel you're more than welcome to. I'll take anything.
How many does this make for you, Austin?
Anything.
Big 33 this year.
33.
Yep,
so,
33.
God, I remember 33, but just barely. How about you, Alan?
I don't remember. Been way
Clearly.
too long.
All right. Well, happy birthday.
All right.
On
Good
to
birthday.
our next question. We'll try to get a couple more in. Can I grow a red chokeberry in boggy soil?
Perfect scenario for chokeberry. Yes, those are certainly on the wetland area list, on the rain garden approved list, and a lot of people don't know about chokeberry, but it's actually a multi-season plant. It's really cool. They're all budded up right now, so they're getting ready to bloom. These tiny white blooms. They'll after that be followed by green berries that will turn red over the winter time. So you've got some red berries to look at, and their fall color is actually stunning. They got red fall color. That's really, really brilliant. So that's a plant not a lot of people know about, but it's something that you should use. And it's a native. Come out here and talk to Joey about our native selection that we have. That's an excellent one. And it does live in some moist conditions. So certainly a good plant. I do know it gets large. So if you need, if you know,
Right.
if you want something that gets big, then you can use that one. So yeah, good choice.
Perfect. All right. And do I need to cover my hydrangeas for frost? They're just starting to leaf.
It wouldn't hurt. I mean, if you're worried about them, I don't know how many you got or how annoying it's going to be to cover all of them. But if you just got a couple, one or two, I'd say why not? Throw a sheet over them tonight.
The difficulty with covering things, and Alan, you've experienced this many times, is that whenever you need to cover it, because we know cold weather's coming in, the wind is always howling. It's hard to do by yourself. It's even difficult with two people sometimes. But so if it's a larger kind of a thing, sometimes you just have to go. I can't get it.
Yeah,
you know?
and just let it.
But
toughen
usually the hydrangeas are not so big that you cannot get those covered.
Your
but
suggestion of using the pot
smaller plants.
Yeah, to cover and everything. Because what people don't realize, sometimes they go out and just throw the sheet over the plant. Well, that doesn't really protect it as well as having the
Some
sheet
kind of structure
up off the plant to keep it from being laying down on the foliage. Because if it's a hard frost, it'll burn it all the way through that sheet.
Yeah, if it's really hard. Now, and of course, you don't ever want to use plastic directly against foliage because of that reason right there. It transmits that cold temperature almost immediately. So if you're gonna, it'll burn. You'll have black all over the edges of it if you do that. It might protect the flowers interiorly, but you're going to burn them where it makes contact. So just be mindful of that. Don't use plastic. You could use a sheet first and plastic over the top of that, which will create just that protective layer. Just don't confuse the order.
We got some more questions here on the Bates page.
Uh-oh.
Yep. And also, I'll just say I like to call up my best friend Bungee Cord whenever I cover up my stuff. Bungee keeps everything held together.
There you go.
Started a cutting garden last year. What should I buy to use for filler in arrangements? Austin?
Oh, a cutting garden.
Maybe that's a question for our Melissa McKay, who's doing all of our.
Well,
Wonderful.
and those of you who are obviously it's nobody in this not in this room, but Melissa does some wonderful arrangements. She is the head of our annuals department down in the greenhouse area, and she is an avid cut gardener. And she put some fabulous arrangements together. She brought in, I don't know, was it 8 or 10 of them a week or so ago?
Oh, it was more than that.
Yeah, for
I
everyone.
don't even remember how many.
nursery.
It
It was
a
like
bunch.
30.
Yeah.
I don't know how
beautiful.
she transported all of them, but it was really cool. The main thing is keep planting flowering things. In my mind, there is nothing that clashes.
Yes.
If it's in flower, it doesn't clash. It doesn't matter if it's different colors, things you might not otherwise put together. Have things that flower at all times of the year, and that's really the secret to being able to do that. Is just continue to research and look for what's in bloom and when it normally is in flower, and look for things that keep something in bloom all the time. Annuals are great. Many annuals will flower continuously throughout the season, but you don't get as much of the stand-up kind of flowers. If you need something that's taller at a central floral element, you might want to use something that's more perennial, and that might not be available at all times. But certainly, everything that's in bloom is fair game.
Yeah,
Get out there
And also,
cut it.
also don't forget about foliage. Foliage is
Absolutely.
really good filler material in vases whenever you're doing cut flowers. So your flowers are going to be your showstoppers for sure, but you need green around that, or you need some variegation.
Yeah, a Cuba, for instance.
Exactly.
It's a very vigorous grower. A lot of great, fleshy, beautiful leaves on them. So that's another great plant to consider having.
And
Ferns
I'll
are great.
just,
Go
I'll
ahead.
just go ahead and throw in here. Melissa actually did a cut flower gardening webinar last year where she goes over a lot of great specimens for you to add to your garden, as well as an upcoming webinar this coming Wednesday, April 13th at 9 a.m. She'll be teaching you about spring bulbs.
All right.
She's already done one on fall bulbs too.
So
check out the Bates Nursery YouTube to catch all of her previous webinars.
well, there you go. So check that out. We're running out of time here. So
We
let's,
certainly are. I
let's
got
get those-
one more.
All right.
Oh, Alice was saying I was even thinking shrubs. Yeah, so shrubs would work.
Hey, I got a great pro tip the other day from a landscaper. She does cut flowers as well, and she told there's a plant out there called Flipside Vitex. Okay, it's a really cool tree. I've got one in my yard. The top
I have
side is
too.
green. The back side is purple. So whenever the wind is blowing, you really see this two-tone effect of purple and green leaves. She told me that she cut a lot of those leaves and put them in vases, and she said they lasted for a very long time. So another way to use it.
That's the kind of tip we would have expected out of Adam Burton
That's
back
right.
in the day. He was all Vitex all the time, but
Vitex
he's
man.
officially out of the industry now, so he no longer is a Vitex cheerleader.
Miriam, I'm doing some cross information transfer right now from
Okay.
the At Home Show page to the Bates page. Miriam is commenting baby's breath or gypsophylla can be grown here. It's a classic.
Gypsophilia is
yeah.
very,
Gypsophilia
yeah.
can be grown as a classic filler. And then there's another question on the baits page. Weeping pussy willow. How big does it get, and can it take morning sun only, like 6 hours?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, it's totally fine with that.
And they do get big. They are a willow after all.
Yeah,
they
they
grow
do get large.
fast, and you give them enough space or be willing to cut. You
And
know,
their width typically gets wider than their height.
Yep.
So just plan for
Yep.
that. You need a nice wide open area.
Beautiful.
Mr. Lincoln, we've kept you pretty quiet today.
Well, between you and Austin, I mean, it's the filter gets it catches most of it.
It's a
upstream.
competitive environment here on the show, but want to thank everybody for tuning in today. Alan, thanks for sitting in
Glad to be here.
and imparting the wisdom that only you possess. So we thank you, and thanks everyone for tuning in. Tune in again next week. We'll be right here on the At Home Show, and I believe Josh will be back.
He will, like or not. No, we love him. See ya.